Greetings and bonvenue. My name is Sean Cronenfeld, and I welcome you all to the first episode of Thumb Wars Presents Blistered Reviews, the new video show where I give you my thoughts and opinions on the latest, and not so latest, games available for experiencing. Basically, going forward, Blistered Reviews will serve as a companion show to Thumb Wars on its new home of That Guy with the Glasses. In the weeks and months ahead, you can look forward to reviews for games from a multitude of platforms, including PS3, Wii U, 3DS, Vita, and PS4. But for now, let us turn our focus to the 4 games going under the spotlight. FYI, for the sake of consistency, I'll be using the same review scale that I previously made use of for my text reviews on Blistered Thumbs, and which features a 10-point scale that breaks down like this. 10 out of 10, Legendary. 9 out of 10, Must Own. 8 out of 10, Awesome. 7 out of 10, Great. 6 out of 10, Above Average. 5 out of 10, Average. 4 out of 10, Below Average. 3 out of 10, Terrible. 2 out of 10, Garbage. 1 out of 10, WTF. I'll also be continuing to make use of the Good, Bad, Ugly summaries and BT's reviewer recommendations as well, and which the latter includes the following. Legendary, Buy It Now, Try It Out, Avoid It, Devil Spawn, for fans only. And with that bit of housekeeping out of the way, let us get on with the show. Heroes of Dragon Age.
Since the beginning, Thedas has been a land in turmoil. From this dark past, heroes have emerged. Brave warriors, powerful mages, and cunning rogues. Now, you can summon these heroes to battle, to quest. Drawn from Dragon Age lore, hundreds of legendary heroes and epic monsters. Collect and evolve them. Send them into battle against other players for gold and glory. Complete quests. Vanquish ever more powerful foes. Upgrade your heroes and become a legend.
Sadly, we start things off on a sour note with what has to be the most disappointing big RPG franchise mobile release I've run into since Final Fantasy All the Bravest. And while Heroes of Dragon Age is not as bad as that particular disaster, it's not from a lack of trying. The game's premise of letting players refight the greatest battles from the history of the world of Dragon Age could have been a real winner, especially as an intro for series newcomers. Unfortunately, though, in practice, it's clear the developers put as little thought and effort into this setup as they could get away with. The good. Music, diverse character selection. The bad. Gameplay, lack of writing, controls, visuals. The ugly. Watching a battle play out for the first time and realizing just how little the developers really cared. One of Heroes' most notable failings is as an extension of the Dragon Age story. The game features a distinct lack of cutscenes and dialogue, while the establishing text that precedes a battle is only ever a perfunctory sentence or two at best. Worse, the characters that players end up recruiting to their ad hoc armies are not given any flavor text whatsoever to establish who or what they are. The game even lacks the standard Dragon Age Codex of Lore, which one would think would be a must-have inclusion for a game that EA describes as the chance to immerse yourself in Dragon Age lore. To paraphrase the off-reference words of a great man, EA, I do not think that word means what you think it does. But alright. So Heroes drops the ball in terms of writing. At least it still has what EA describes as squad-based strategy gameplay to fall back on, right? Not so much, because while players do indeed assemble a squad of up to 4 regular units and 1 giant one, think bears, int knockoffs, dragons, etc., there's nothing remotely strategic about Heroes' combat system. Mainly because calling something where a player hits go and then watches as the computer plays out both sides of the fight without any input from the player whatsoever is hardly what I would call a combat system in the first place. The only influence players can have on a battle is the choice of pre-built units to include in the squad. Equipments and weapons? None of that, because apparently the developers of Heroes have never heard of such things. And whether or not to use special one-time only runes that can be activated before a fight in order to, say, increase the squad's stats or give them a better chance of attacking more powerful and dangerous foes first. Yes, you heard that right. This supposed strategy game has turned one of the most basic elements of any battle strategy into an occurrence of random chance. It truly boggles the mind. Rounding things out are all the worst elements that have unfortunately become too often the norm for mobile freemium titles these days, including the best chance of getting decent characters being pay-gated, and not one but two separate recharging energy systems, and either of which can easily be drained from full in under 5 minutes of active play, but in turn take nearly an hour to fully recharge. So those looking for a game that can, say, fill an hour or two while commuting to work will best be served looking elsewhere. Actually, anyone looking for an enjoyable game, period, would do well to heed that advice, and I've not even touched upon the game's messed up leveling system. Throw in mediocre visuals and deliberately limited animations that make the game's fights not even interesting to watch, plus the fact that the game's various systems make online multiplayer the definition of pay to win, and what is left is the opposite of a thrilling new entry into the turn-based strategy genre. I'm a die-hard Dragon Age fan, and yet even I could find almost nothing of redeeming value in Heroes of Dragon Age, and the game does not even appear to have tie-in functions to the upcoming Dragon Age Inquisition, meaning that Heroes is a game truly without any reason whatsoever to exist. Score? 3 out of 10, terrible. Recommendation? Avoid it. AntiSquad. To counter our first unfortunate title, let us take a look at a mobile turn-based strategy game that actually does a decent job of getting the genre right. This is not to say that AntiSquad is a game without serious flaws, but at least it features actual competently designed gameplay, which is more than Heroes of Dragon Age ever managed. If only some egregious pay-to-play elements did not so obnoxiously get in the way of the potential fun. The good: gameplay, story, visuals, audio. The bad: freemium elements, controls, stereotypes. The ugly: character designs in this game often brush right up against the border of racial insensitivity. The setup for AntiSquad will be familiar to anyone who's read or watched The Losers or even the A-Team. A group of supposed badasses operating outside the system and the law go around taking down baddies with as much extreme prejudice as they can manage. All the familiar archetypes are present, and the game's story is a cliché-ridden affair that will remind anyone of a decent, mindless action flick. Basically, the story of AntiSquad does just enough to give the game a personality, however familiar of one it may be, and some context for the action that unfolds. It's writing that's not going to win any awards, but like the stars of the game itself, it does the job it needs to do. Gameplay-wise, AntiSquad is a fairly standard turn-based strategy game in the style of, say, Final Fantasy Tactics, with a particular focus on stealth and skill management. While players may be going into battle with 3 hardened modern-day warriors, this is still a game nominally set in the real world, and that in turn means that it only takes a few bullets at the wrong time to bring a soldier down. Fortunately, each potential squad mate has unique abilities and weapons to help balance the odds in a variety of ways, which makes this potential vulnerability more a fun addition than an actual failure of design. Some missions in AntiSquad can feel downright puzzle-like, as players are forced to plan out their particular solution down to the smallest move and its potential consequence. Unfortunately, as previously mentioned, a number of truly obnoxious freemium elements prevent the game from reaching its full potential. Chiefly, these come into play in the game's leveling system, with each stat or other upgradable item eventually becoming locked behind a pay gate every time a player upgrades it 1 or 2 times. Keep in mind that this is on top of the game's already $3 price tag, and that a significantly enhanced character becomes all but required in later levels, and it's a perfect recipe for giving players the feeling they're being bilked out of their cash. Pay elements in a non-free-to-play game, no matter how cheaply priced, should always be optional, and by ignoring this, AntiSquad severely undercuts its own appeal. Also marring the game are occasional control issues, but these are ultimately fairly minor in the larger scheme of things, and never become a particularly serious detriment to the gameplay. More concerning is the heavily stereotyped Mexican drug cartel that serves as the first campaign's chief baddies. AntiSquad features a cartoony and very stylized design, and I can see what the developers were aiming for with these enemies, but they come too close to a number of nasty racial cliches for their own good, which in turn mars an otherwise lovely presentation. Orally, the game only has a limited number of music tracks at its disposal, but they're all winners at least, and suit the action playing out on screen well. Overall, AntiSquad is an above-average mobile strategy game that falls just short of greatness thanks to some poorly implemented pay elements. Even with this and its other problems, the actual gameplay present is strong enough that I think it's worth playing for any strategy fan with a little bit of extra cash to burn. Here's hoping the game's publisher eventually tones down these pay elements, because as it stands, AntiSquad is a case of so close, yet still so far away. Score, 6 out of 10, above average. Recommendation, try it out. Republique, Episode 1.
Please, I need your help. I don't have much time. Did you do that? They're right there.
How are you out of your cage? If the headmaster could see you now.
I pray you have not doomed us all, child.
Don't trust anybody, not even me.
The girl's infected, taking her to recalibration.
It is a secret between you and I.
They're coming. Let's go. Please, stay with me.
Who is this?
For every example of crowdfunding failure and Kickstarter horror story, there has been even more campaigns that have succeeded in delivering the promised goods, and last month, another such project was added to the list with the release of Episode 1 of Republique. This episodic stealth title is something special, and already seems poised to do for stealth on mobile platforms what the Infinity Blade series did for action. The good: story, gameplay, general controls, visual, audio. The bad: awkward camera angles. The ugly: what kind of monsters steal a man's video game collection? The first episode of Republique throws players right into the deep end, and even by the episode's close, most of the game's story and setting remain draped in mystery. What is known for sure is this: in an unnamed totalitarian state, there exists a school-like facility called Metamorphosis, where the best and brightest are trained to become the new generation of state-controlled authority. As the game opens, one of the students of Metamorphosis, a teenager by the name of Hope, has been arrested by the facility's authorities and accused of subversion and being a follower of a just-killed revolutionary leader. Hope protests her innocence, but to no avail, and this is where the player comes in. Somehow, Hope has gotten her hands on an illicit smartphone and managed to make contact with the player via their own phone/computer. As it turns out, Hope's phone is a very special device indeed, and players can use it to remotely hack into the countless cameras scattered around Metamorphosis in order to help guide Hope in her attempted escape. However, the path to freedom is blocked by a small army of guards and many other obstacles, and if Hope's going to make it out alive and intact, players will have to learn how to turn the tools of the state against itself. It's an interesting, if at times somewhat familiar, setup, and Republique does a good job of establishing its world while laying the groundwork for future chapters yet to come. Admittedly, Hope and the other major players opposing her in Republique do still feel like they're in need of some further fleshing out, but then there are still 4 more episodes to go. Besides, as far as character building goes, Republique accomplishes the single biggest task it needed to in its first episode, establishing Hope as a likable yet slightly beat-down protagonist who, despite all set against her, remains determined to defy her fate. Players should have no problem bonding with her and becoming invested in helping her escape, and that alone leaves me feeling confident that the developers know what they are doing and are going somewhere specific with Republique. However, as effective as Republique's storytelling might be, it is the gameplay present in this title that truly represents a step forward for mobile gaming. As previously mentioned, Republique forgoes giving players direct control of Hope, and instead they must guide her movement by tapping at locations and or items on the screen in order to get her to move around or perform context-sensitive actions. For example, tapping on a bush or locker on the screen will cause Hope to use them as hiding spots, while tapping on a guard will lead Hope to attempt to pick his pocket. In practice, it makes for a very elegant solution to the perennial problem of mobile devices generally lacking the traditional physical controls of other gaming platforms. Also, as previously mentioned, players will be able to assume control of any of the cameras near Hope's current location. Metamorphosis apparently is home to hundreds of cameras, including in such normally unlikely locations as bathrooms and walk-in freezers. And it's by jumping from camera to camera that players will be able to follow Hope as she attempts to make her escape. Additionally, scattered throughout every location in the game are dozens of emails, phone messages, banned books, audio tapes, and even video games, and all of which can be gathered for points that can be spent to allow for more abilities like unlocking computer-controlled doors and setting off alarms or other electronics as a means of distraction. Admittedly, occasionally the odd camera angle can make maneuvering Hope where you want her to go a bit trickier than would be preferable, but this was overall more the exception than the rule. Plus, the game is forgiving enough while also not presenting players with a simple cakewalk that getting caught is not the end of the world either. One of the advantages to episodic gaming anyways is that a developer can improve on small problems like these as the game progresses, and hopefully that will be the case for Republique as well. In the end, the first episode of Republique is an impeccably paced adventure that does a good job of easing players into its novel and compelling gameplay during its 3 to 5 hour running time. Visually, this is a gorgeous game, with music and voice acting of an equal quality, and altogether it makes for a terrific showcase title for the potential of mobile devices as legitimate gaming platforms. And if you're really that dead set against mobile gaming, a PC release of Republique due out later this year should have you covered. On iOS, the first episode of Republique cost a scant $5, and if players like what they see, a season pass for the remaining episodes is only an additional $15. Republique was a game seemingly brimming with potential during its Kickstarter campaign, and I'm happy to say that the developers have done an excellent job bringing that potential to fruition. Throughout episode 1 of the game, there are little hints scattered about that there's more going on to the world of Republique than at first glance might be apparent, and I, for one, cannot wait to discover what truths await in the months ahead. Score, 8 out of 10, awesome. Recommendation, buy it now. Detective Grimoire, Secrets of the Swamp.
I don't get it. Why would anyone come here by choice?
We're talking about a creature that's lived in this swamp for over 60 years. That creature is our prime suspect.
That thing is our murder suspect?
He doesn't seem like a killing sort of creature. Nope. He's a different sort of creature.
You're the detective, right?
I'm a detective.
If you're good at your job, you may have realized that it's kinda dead around here.
Our murder victim. He was in charge of this, tourist attraction.
That man was a threat to the swamp. We'll be better off without him.
Naturally, I've crossed paths with Remington a number of times. Good value, that one.
The man was a fool. That's all you need to know.
That's a little rude.
Maybe he'll see the light now and leave the swamp behind him. Maybe everyone will.
Some things don't make sense straight away. You need to look a little closer.
The swamp itself has a history that has captured many imaginations, for better or for worse.
No, come on. How am I supposed to arrest something that might not exist?
You've always enjoyed a challenge before.
That little girl is too stupid for my beard to be so smart. Oh, that doesn't make sense, does it?
As I've already stated previously, plenty of Kickstarter projects have ultimately delivered on their promised product, but that's not to say that every single one of these has traveled the road to completion smoothly. Indeed, delays are not uncommon for Kickstarter projects, as ended up being the case for the adventure game Detective Grimoire Secrets of the Swamp, which, despite originally being planned for release in September 2012, only finally managed to arrive on digital shelves last week. Still, I'm happy to say that the game has proven to be worth the wait, and this is one experience fans of the adventure game genre in general, and titles like Phoenix Wright and Professor Layton in particular, will not want to miss. The good: story, characters, gameplay, controls, visuals, audio. The bad: fairly easy puzzles. The ugly: the thought of drinking something called swamp juice. Detective Grimoire Secrets of the Swamp is the latest title from the indie studio of SFB Games, which consists of London-based brothers Tom and Adam Vian. Previously, they've produced countless brilliant free titles, including what is essentially a prototype version of Detective Grimoire, for sites such as Armor Games and AdultSwim.com. Detective Grimoire actually marks the pair's second official full pay-to-play release, following on last year's excellent Haunt the House Terror Town, and it's every bit as charming and delightful of an experience as their previous works. Swamp opens with the titular Grimoire heading out to a mysterious and remote marsh where a murder has occurred at a would-be tourist attraction. Said attraction is supposedly the home of a creature known as Boggy that's been turned into quite the merchandisable character thanks to years of old-school Disney cartoons. But Grimoire soon discovers that the truth behind the attraction may go deeper and darker than anyone would expect. Despite the seemingly grim setup, Secret of the Swamp is ultimately an enchanting mystery romp, and this is thanks in equal parts to its strong writing, engaging gameplay, and excellent production values. Grimoire makes for a terrific lead, and the colorful cast of suspects he ends up interacting with do an equally able job of serving as both aid and foils for the sarcastic, world-weary detective. As for the mystery of the murder that drives the game's plot, it plays fair with the players, and is constructed in a logical manner that will allow one to assemble the clues in classic style and reach the proper conclusion even before the game does. Admittedly, it is not the deepest mystery ever cooked up, but as an entry into a hoped-for ongoing series, it more than gets the job done. In gameplay terms, Secret of the Swamp plays out like a bit of a hybrid between the aforementioned Phoenix Wright and Professor Layton games, with some unique elements of its own thrown in for good measure. Like both of those games, players will explore the environs of Boggy's Bog via a first-person point-and-click style interface, and will need to talk to suspects and gather clues before then assembling the various pieces together in order to move the plot along. Players will do this by helping Grimoire gather his thoughts, by filling in the blanks in sentences from a wide variety of choices based on the suspect's events and clues so far encountered. It's a nice little system that helps players really feel like they're solving the mystery alongside Grimoire without ever being railroaded into answers. Similarly, each of the game's 7 main suspects has their own dialogue-driven minigame that is somewhat similar to the Psylocke of Phoenix Wright fame, although generally a lot easier to conquer. Detective Grimoire features impeccable touch controls and an extensive and well-laid-out menu system, and these make proceeding through Secrets of the Swamp an utterly painless process on a mobile device from start to finish. Players will also periodically encounter Professor Layton-esque puzzles, but admittedly a good number of these challenges end up falling on the fairly easy side of the road, especially for any experienced adventure gamer. Still, there are at least several legitimately tricky brain teasers awaiting players, and even the easier puzzles help to give the game added color and personality. Not that it really needs aid in that regards, thanks to its flat-out gorgeous hand-drawn art style. Put simply, Detective Grimoire is a delight to look at, with a world filled with plenty of details and small touches. Characters, meanwhile, are superbly animated during dialogue sequences, and overall, this is a title with visual style and panache to spare. The same can be said for its audio as well, with a terrific, already award-winning soundtrack, thanks to the game's longer-than-expected development cycle, that will immediately appeal to any fan of the likes of Danny Elfman, Henry Machini, or Bruno Coloyas. Fans of game soundtracks take note, this is one addition to your collection you need to acquire as soon as possible. The game also features top-notch voice acting from an indie cast who really sink their teeth into their characters. Overall, Secrets of the Swamp is a terrific game that will delight players of all ages across its several hours running time, with it only costing a mere $4, and its availability on iOS, Google Play, Android, Windows, Mac, and even Linux. There really is no excuse for everyone not to give this wonderful adventure title a try. This game is clearly the very definition of a labor of love, and is exactly the kind of thoughtful and well-designed experience that fans of indie gaming have come to expect. Detective Grimoire Secrets of the Swamp is truly something special, and is all but guaranteed to put a smile on the face of all who play it. Score, 9 out of 10. Must own. Recommendation, buy it now. And that does it for this week's show. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of Blistered Reviews, and I look forward to sharing more of my thoughts and opinions on games in the weeks and months ahead. By all means, let me know what you think in the comment section below, and feel free to make suggestions for games you want to see reviewed. I'm open to reviewing a wide variety of titles, both old and new, provided I can get my hands on them, and keep in mind I don't exactly have an unlimited budget here, but I'll do my best. Alright, so for That Guy with the Glasses and Channel Awesome, this is Sean Cronenfeld wishing everyone happy gaming.